So in looking for a topic, it's a little odd sometimes. You know, I get the reminder email from Kisa that says, "We need your topic for a few weeks out." So you have talking points to the teachers, and then you look at something to talk about, and then I remind myself of what that is on the way here. Usually, like what particular point. And I saw today it was transcending one-sidedness. Right? It's just like, wow, I'm just like, wow, how do you do that? How do you, how does one transcend one-sidedness? I mean, are we actually one-sided? It might be a fitting time to bring up such a thing, right? Of course, in the announcements, I was just joking with Galen that I forgot to make an announcement that apparently is an election coming up. I don't know if anyone noticed it. And he said, "Oh, don't mention it." So just think like we might be coming here to forget about that for a period of time, or to take some refuge away from all of the chaos and the worry and the anxiety that naturally arises from something so overwhelming. It's screaming at us from all directions. And as meditation, as dharma practitioners, if you describe yourself in such a way, or at least as meditation practitioners, everybody was sitting here very, very still, so I take it that you're a practitioner of meditation, then you are, and we are, engaged in an essential activity. The essential activity of the Buddhas. It's Dogen Zenji in the Soto Zen tradition was once asked, if Buddhas are enlightened, then why do they meditate? Right, so we have a depiction here of the founder of Buddhism, Shakyamuni Buddha, sitting in a traditional meditation pose there. So, but if enlightened or awakened, said the Buddha for 40 years after his enlightenment, practiced meditation and practiced the precepts, practiced and taught the Dharma. Why practice meditation if already awake and enlightened? And Dogen said, because meditation is the activity of a Buddha. That's what a Buddha does. Buddha meditates. The word Buddha means awakened one who is awake. So when we come to meditation, it's an expression of our innate awakeness, the innate Buddhahood, if we put that word on it. Right? The word Buddha makes it sound a little more exotic, but we're talking about being awake. What is it to be awake? The more that I look at this lately, from different angles and different perspectives, and trying to get to the core of the matter, if one is unfortunate enough to have chosen this as a career, where you have to talk about these things, it's a curious role to have, then it comes up. How can we best share? How can we most accurately or precisely share something that is useful for people, for each of us? Something that is useful. At the very core of Buddhism is the central message is that the human condition is one of that is plagued by dukkha, or suffering, or dissatisfaction. And anyone who is appearing here as a human being, which is all of us, I think, right, knows something about dissatisfaction and dukkha, or suffering. And the Buddha said that there could be an end to suffering. And there were practices that could help us certainly lessen the suffering of the human condition. And from that, the Dharma teachings arise. Really, the inquiry is into the nature of self. in whatever lineage or approach that we go after the Dharma teachings, usually using meditation as a kind of primary vehicle, it's the exploration and understanding of self-nature. So we have this human condition. Each one of us has a name, a history, and a whole collection of the things that happen to us, good and bad and everything in between. And all of the descriptions for ourselves, the me, I, all of the roles that we play within our families, within our careers. And we carry around, of course, we have this sense of me, I identity. And a common experience for human beings is to perceive I, me as the center of the world. And then everything is revolving around that center. So there's I, me, walking around in a world of other and of separate things. And that's a kind of a conventional understanding of self. Me, I. Me, I, who is time-bound and appearing as a form, and as an appearance of form is subject to the great fact of impermanence. So we're living out that fact of impermanence as human beings. And of course, with the I, me, we gather preferences, and we have opinions and beliefs and ideas, quite naturally, the form, in our own mind, and often taken on from the opinions, beliefs, and narratives that are being shared with us from others. And we build a definition of the self and a definition of the world. But unfortunately, as a human being, one of the downsides to this curious consciousness that we have is we experience the world in a very dualistic manner. Right? With self and other being a clear expression of dualism, good and bad, another clear expression of dualism. That's a curious fact of our consciousness, the way that we can split things and compare things. The Buddha talked about the fact that as a human being, we are always involved in attachment and aversion. Right? So there are the things that we like, the preferences, the things that we want to hold on to. And there are the things that we don't like, we don't want to happen, or we don't want in our lives, and we maybe try and push those things away. And that is a cause of a lot of the dissatisfaction in a human being's life, is always wandering in this realm of attachment and aversion. So when we come to meditation, our meditation is a grand opportunity to let go of attachment and aversion and to go beyond preferential picking and choosing. And we do that in a very practical, straightforward way. We come in and we sit down, and a little time goes by, and then the bell is struck, and we have this experience of mind, experience of self. Within that experience of self is this appearance of I, me. I, me may not be enjoying meditation this afternoon, right? I, me may be feeling a certain way. I, me may be worried about certain things. I, me may be, right? Usually there's usually some story attachment with I, me. Even if it's not a particularly compelling story or an urgent story, there's still a story. It's just there's no story, we'll just play an old story then. As long as there's something playing on the screen, right? So we're all familiar, we can smile and we kind of laugh at that sense of I, me. Now, if in our meditation practice we're in involved in that I, me sense, which is not liking the siren on the street, or not appreciating the door closing, or whatever, whatever the content of that external experience, or weighing and judging our own internal experience. Shouldn't be thinking, should be more concentrated, not, and starting to weigh and judge that, then we're sitting, but we're really still stuck in that realm of I, me, and preferring mind, which is involved in attachment and aversion. So if we see something like the image of the Buddha, and he has that here, that expression of a slight, kind of a soft smile on the lips, right? The soft smile on the face. This is an expression of going beyond kind of attachment and aversion, right? Not being attached to the appearance of the content. That's really the heart of our meditation practice. It's deeply swallowing the fact that however life appears, however this world appears now, can be experienced and allowed to be as it is, wholeheartedly and unconditionally. Right? So we move from our conditional experience. Like me, I is always conditional. Right? We're always being conditioned by the world, and we're conditioning the world in turn, and those around us. Right? But sitting, our meditation practice, is a time to be unconditioned. We are unconditioned when we let go of having to manipulate the present experience. That letting go of manipulating the present experience includes allowing our own commentary on the present experience. Right? So we might be sitting, and then a thought stream fires up. It says, blah, 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 blah. Right? And that feels like a problem. And then if you say, well, I shouldn't be doing that, well, now we've got two problems. Right? So much better to just allow, blah, 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 blah. Right? But then just to have that voice, or that narrative, our own internal me-I narrative, have no importance. Have your thinking mind be no more important. When sitting, thinking mind is no more important than the feeling in your feet. Or the feeling, really, and I really mean that. It's just, it can be for that period of time, especially for that 30 minutes, that flywheel can, can be just disengaged. It could just spin, but it doesn't have to go somewhere. And for most of us, that takes an awful lot of practice to just allow mind to unfold as it is. But the part that we call me, I, is usually the most pernicious. It's kind of clung to. That's a kind of self-identity that's there. But you can really allow that self-identity to just be as it is, and not have to attach, run, or try and change anything at all. A way that you can we really practically do this is to open a broad aperture to everything else that is being experienced. Typically for us as humans, because everybody is just sitting here doing nothing, it's maybe not very entertaining. Right? This is why the brain will often fire up some stories, start some things. How about this? How about that? In an effort to try and draw us into entertainment. Right? But this really requires then the shift of a transcendence from a kind of I, me, small self that is always picking and choosing and weighing the experience, comparing and contrasting, to a broad, deep, still aspect of self, which includes all things in all directions all at once. Everything that's here, everything that's here, everything that's seen and unseen, just witnessed, experienced. In the Zen school, there's a lot of emphasis on meditation as a primary vehicle toward waking up to a broader nature, a deeper nature of self, what we call original nature, or true nature. Why? Because it worked for the Buddha. You know, it's like sit a lot, meditate a lot, as a primary means to catalyze or wear out or lean into or chip away at a deeper felt experience of space and freedom. But why? Why do that? In the paramitas, meditation is followed by wisdom. Wisdom, not like the accumulation of knowledge. We all have like a lot of knowledge, and we've got a lot of gobfuls of knowledge being thrown at us from left and right, right? But the wisdom that is much more than knowing things, right? Bernie Glassman, who was in my lineage at the Zen school, has a wonderful formulation called the three tenets. Three tenets of Zen peacemaking. The first one is not knowing. Right? That is wisdom. This is wisdom. Not knowing. That's what it is. When we sit, we don't know. You don't need to know. But there's the active appearance, the appearance of things. The mind may want to know things, weigh things, grab things. Like that sense of I, me. The deeper appearance of self is a blank page, is a blank slate. Doesn't know. Not knowing, finding out. Not knowing, experiencing. Not knowing, being interested in what's real. Not knowing, clearing away preconceived ideas, desires, opinions. Right? We all have this experience of the world now, and we're looking towards the experience of what's the world going to be like in a couple of days. Right? And everybody may have a deep desire for it to turn out a certain way. And you may well be disavowed of that. Reality may well not comply and will produce something else. It might surprise us all. Right? Even with what's coming up this week, it may not even be settled. It could go on for months. Who knows? We don't know. Right? And if we're heavily invested or determined that it has to go a certain way, that's a dangerous bet. Because we're betting against a reality which is not taking the other side of that wager. Right? We may have our desires and our ideas as well-intentioned and hopeful as they are, and yet the world is just going to unfold as it is. The causes and conditions of the world since like the beginningless time have produced this experience, this world now. In all of its complexity, in all of its brokenness, in all of its joy and all of its suffering, all over the world. All of the sum of karma has produced this now. And the next couple of days or the next week and the next year hasn't yet arrived, hasn't come into manifestation. What will determine that? All of the causes and conditions that have led to this point now, and all of the conditions and causes and conditions between this point now and then. Right? So as Dharma practitioners, our responsibility is how will we respond to the world between now and then? Right? How will we respond to the world now? So in Bernie's formulation, not knowing, bearing witness. Zazen or Zen sitting, like our meditation is that. It is not knowing. Right? You don't know that the siren's going to go off or the door's going to close or you're going to be thinking about next Friday. You don't, not knowing. And then bearing witness, deeply accepting and allowing everything to be as it is without having to categorize or judge the experience. That is what it is, to just bear witness. You bear witness to the way things are. And the way things are is not the way we want them to be. Ever, really, right? Or if it is, it won't be that way for long. So not knowing, bearing witness. And then the third step is taking action. Originally written as healing, which can be the same thing. How so? So we see the self as it's arranged. We have this direct experience, and then we bear witness, which means to let go of preconceived ideas, and just as much as possible allow things to be as they are and bear witness to that. Then our next step, to go to the place of taking action. This is really like the way of in Mahayana Zen, we call the way of the Bodhisattva. The way of the Bodhisattva. The way of a practitioner, of someone who is on the path to becoming a Buddha. And if you hey, you know what, I just came for a bit of meditation on a Sunday afternoon, I'm not signing up. I didn't realize I was going to be a Bodhisattva on Buddha. I'm not really feeling that, level of commitment. Then we can just say a Bodhisattva is someone who is committed to being ever more present, alive, and engaged with their life, with their environment. I think everybody can get behind that. To be awake and aware and engaged with our life as it is. Now, if we become, we are people of presence, which means you are alive and awake here and looking at the world as clearly engaged as possible, bearing witness to things, then this taking action arises from a different place. Everybody has an idea of how things should be done. Right? How many people feel in the world, in the country right now, if everyone going to the polls, how many people would feel like if I was in charge, I could fix it? And how much confidence would we have in that? Right? So many people will have naturally as a human being, I have a good idea for the way things should be. But unfortunately, everybody has a different idea. Well, some people, half the people have this idea, and half have that idea. So our old friend kind of duality and the split comes in. Right? So if all our ideas are just preconceived and come out of a narrative, an opinion, and kind of a fixed view of the world, then they don't match reality well. Because reality, like our life, this world, has already moved on since those ideas were formulated. It's different. The world changed. The world is different now than when we began sitting. The world moved on. Reality already unfolded. We all changed. Any ideas about what to do need adjustment. And that adjustment happens now, in the present, the only place we ever are. So this moving to taking action from bearing witness comes from a place of appropriate, engaged response. Seeing things as they are and being able to make a real-time response to the way things are, aligned closely with the present. This is what waking up. This is waking up. Being an alive part of the world in the place where we have everything that we need in order to respond to everything that there is, everything that is. And often though, for us as human beings, that me, I, that is weighing and judging and trying to fix things and desires certain outcomes. I have this desire for certain outcomes around things. For sure, we all do, right? As human beings. But again, if we hold and cling on to those desires for certain outcomes, and then decide this is the way that it must be, then again, life usually doesn't comply with that. Life loves to rug pull those ideas. So we can certainly have and ought to have desires for certain, for positive outcomes. But the way that they are created and expressed must always be refined in the immediacy of the present, when we're dealing with people and things. And, you know, again, the way things are now, we look out into the world, we see everything that's wrong. Well, not everything, but we can be overwhelmed with the condition of things. And the best part of our humanity sees suffering and sees difficulty and sees division, and naturally we want that to end. You know, we have that positive intention, that we all want to be whole and at peace. Like in our metta chant that we have, we want all beings to be happy. We want all beings to be free from suffering. And yet each one of us has to find how we can best be of benefit in our life. Now, how do we support our sphere of activity? How do we best do that? You know, if we are awake and aware, present, alive, and not bound by me, I, bound by those preferences, then there's much more capacity for appropriate response to come through. There's much more space. You know, it's like the world recognizes that you're awake and present, and then shows you what to do. Asks for your help. That's what it is to be a bodhisattva in that sense. Awake and aware and being of service, being of help in small ways and in large ways. But we need that, or at least for I do, I need that time spent in stillness, time spent in silence. You know, if I just, you know, in my waking days, like moving through life, the mind is like, we're so busy, you know, like my mind is like a hamster wheel, like just all the time. Sometimes, you know, things can slow down. That's, you know, nice when that happens. But really, you know, I like, you know, the direct path is to not find fault with the mind the way that it is, the way that you appear. And immediately to accept and allow the world, internally and externally, whatever's being inside, whatever's felt outside, and really make that unilateral declaration of peace with the way things are. Over and over. And then the way things will be, to accept and allow that too. To know that it won't be the way that we desire or want to be. It will be the way that it is. And how can we argue that, really? How, you know, when we get into a fight with the world, with the reality, and we don't accept the result, we don't accept the result, you know? These are the results. These are the results of generations and millennia of the human world, of the whole world. And if we really want to have more positive results going forward, then we need to, it behooves us to practice good actions now. And I think we all know what those good actions are. Yeah? The good way, the right to live an upright life. So it's very much on my mind as we kind of go into this election and all of the shocking division, and it's like it couldn't be any more divided, really. Right? If we just look at the country, right down the middle, there's this terrible divide. And I'm tired of it being a team sport, you know? It's like people pick their teams and the tribes, and then, you know, and then the war that goes on. What a shame for all of these, like all of these thousands of years of human history, and we're still acting out the same separated, violent bullshit. Oh, like we haven't learned, you know. But for Dharma practitioners, then we can really transcend that duality and that division, you know, and have at least the goal of, at some point, that we can go beyond that split and eventually, you know, work towards bringing people together. Which sounds so like a wild aim at this point. And yet we really are. We're all human beings. And we have much more in common than we have differences between us. So a few words there just on this subject, but I'd like to open it up for comment and for any questions, screams, whatever. That's like the sanest response right there. The scream down the alleyway, you know, like, you know.
Hi, I'm Franz with Long Beach Meditation. Your gracious generosity makes this programming possible. If you found this video to be of value, please consider making a donation here. If you'd like to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to stay in touch with Long Beach Meditation, click here to subscribe. Thank you, and may all beings be happy.